Okay, we're now on question 3. Again, I'm going to round our final answer to 1 decimal. Now this one gets a little bit more confusing. I'll explain why. So I'm going to do it the 2 methods again. I'm going to do the 1 method where I figure out sine of 15 right away. So we'll do the 1 method using this easier on this type of calculator. So you go sine, so you go 15, and then you go here sine. And you get 0.2588. 0.2588 equals 12 over x. You do the same thing. You put it over 1, and then you do that cross multiply again. So then you get 0.2588x. So you multiply this way and that way, and that equals 12. Now you have an extra step. You have to divide this by 0.2588 to get x by itself. So you divide by the number in front of the x squared. And you do the same to both sides. So you divide by 0.2588. You keep a lot of decimal places until the end. And at the very end, that's when you eliminate the decimal place. It's more accurate the more you keep. 12 divided by 0.2588. And you get 46.4. So x is 46.4. Now I'm going to do it method 2. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do sine of 15 equals 12 over x. I'm going to put it over 1 and we'll cross multiply. So do the same cross multiply and you get x sine of 15 equaling to 12. Then we divide both sides by sine of 15 as opposed to a number, and sine of 15. Then we put this 12 divided by sine of 15 in the calculator. So we go to I'm going to go to the big calculator this time, this one here. And we'll clear all this, and we'll go 12, and we just have to use the calculator once. Divided by sine 15. Close the bracket. And you get the same answer, 46.4, but you only have to use the calculator once. I prefer this second method, but you really have to understand that sine 15 is a number when you use this method, but it's 12 divided by that number, so it's 12 divided by this number. And you're just I just find it's easier to just put it in the calculator and to write this. Now, it is pronounced sine here, not sin. I'd like you to try the next two. You can pause the video and try it. I will do first one, that second method, and the second one, the first method, okay? So hopefully you've paused it and tried it. So now I will do it. So we got cosine of 72, so I'm going to do that first method. So cosine of 72 equals 48 over x. You put it over 1, you cross multiply. So you cross this way, so you put the x in the front. It always goes in the front when you do it this method. This x, you cross it, they're multiplied, so it doesn't matter on the order, but the preference is to put the x right in the front. And that equals 1 times 48, so we're crossing over 48. Then we divide both sides by cos 72, divide by cos 72, and then we go to our calculator. We get 48, so we'll clear everything. 48 divided by cos 72. Close the bracket. 48 divided by cos 155.3. 155.3. Over here, the tan. So this one we'll do different. We'll use the other calculator. We'll switch back and forth. So if someone does have this calculator, they can follow along. So in this case, you have to put the number in first. So we're going to clear here. So here you got to put 78 first. So you put 78, and then you go tan. And you get 4.7046. 4.7046 equals 36 over x. Put that over 1. Make sure I copy the number down correctly. 4.7046. Put it over 1. You cross multiply. So you cross this way and that way. So 4.7046x equals 36. Divide by what's in front of the x. Divide by 4.7046. And do the same on this side. Divide by 4.7046. Now you go back to the calculator and you go 36 divided by 4.7046. And you get an answer, x equaling to, and you only need one decimal here, 7.7 rounded. 7.7. I'm going to move on now, labeling a right angle triangle and three trig ratios. So first we're going to work on labeling the triangle. Now we got this funny symbol here, theta. Okay, it's basically, it's like 0 with a line through it. Let me use that on my pen one more time. It's like that and a line through the middle. It's called theta. It's a Greek symbol. It's the symbol we use for angles, for any angle. So here's our theta here. Now I'm going to show you how to label the triangle. Now you should know across this way from the 90 degrees what that right angle triangle, what that's called. That's called the hypotenuse. If you didn't know that, it's the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. And these three triangles, this one, and this one on the bottom, are on the right of your handout. Now, across from the angle, you're going to go right across from the angle this way. That one has a name too. So this is the angle. If you go across from it, it's called the opposite. So this one here, opposite. Okay. Now, there's two beside the angle, but one's already called the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. The other one has to be called. So the one down here, that's the hypotenuse. The one down here is called the adjacent. Now, if you can't read my writing, okay, you can just get it from the sheet here. Look, adjacent, hypotenuse, and opposite. You just got to put it, this is how you spell it. You just have to put it in the right place. So if you can't read the hypotenuse here, okay, you can, or the opposite, you can read it from that sheet. Okay, so this is how you label it. So across from the angle is called the opposite. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, and beside it's the adjacent. If you can't label these triangles, you won't be able to do the questions later on, or the trig questions. So I've got two more. You can try to label them before I label them. Always label the one across from the 90 first. So if you want, you can pause and try to label these, see if you get it right. Okay, so hopefully you've tried it. So across from the 90, I'm going to use short forms. Okay, so across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. I'm just going to call it hip. I don't know why I don't use H. For some reason, I've always learned to use HYP. Maybe a math teacher taught me initially. So that's the first one, the hip. Across from the angle. So I always do the one across from the angle. Next one I label it. Across from the angle is called the opposite, or I call it OPP. Now, beside the angle. So look, this is beside the angle. So this is beside the angle, this side, and this side's beside the angle. So this one's already labeled hypotenuse, so this has to be the adjacent. So A, D, J. I just use the first letter, adjacent. Okay, if you figured this out, if you haven't figured it out, if you want to try this one on your own, then pause it and come back. I'm going to do this one right now, but you can pause it and do it on your own first. Okay, across. So across from the 90, always first, hypotenuse. Across from the angle, second. Try to get a different color here. Across from the angle, opposite. Beside the angle, right beside it, right here, right beside it. This is called adjacent, ADJ. So you have to be able to label the triangles or the sides before you can do any of the questions. Now, here are the three trig ratios. So trig ratios are proportions of the sides. These are basically numbers. Sine, this one's called sine, although it's spelled sin. This one's called cos, and this one's called tan. Those are how you pronounce it. If you're given a triangle, you have to know how to label the sides. And then most teachers expect you to memorize these for a test, and they don't give them to you. Obviously, with distance learning, you can always look them up. They use this short form, so, ka, toa, to remember it. So sine is the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. Okay, ka, so CAH is adjacent divided by hypotenuse. Tan is the opposite divided by hypotenuse, which is TOA. So I'd like to use this word to remember, SOHCAHTOA. So tan is opposite length divided by the adjacent length. Cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Now, I like to write these in short form, and I like to have them on a piece of paper somewhere. So I put them somewhere on the side. So I know a lot of people on a test write them right away. But they have these written out on a piece of paper, and they do the question, and then they look at these. So I write them in big, usually on the side or somewhere. And then when I do my math, I refer to them. So every time I do a question, I like to use the sign on highway. So opposite over hypotenuse, cozy at home. Cozy at, they just use the first letters, home. There's another way. Tan on arm. So there's another way to remember. You can use another acronym, tan on arm, tan. So you should write them down before you do them. Even if you memorize them for a test in the future, you write them down right on the top of the test as soon as you start it. And here's another way to remember it. Sine on highway. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cozy at home, use the first letters. Cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan on arm. So it's tan is opposite over adjacent. On the next video, we'll actually try some questions. So on the next video, we'll do some questions related to this.